Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Open Sketchbook podcast. My guest today is Nicolas Uribe. He's one of my favorite painters, and I think we caught him at the perfect time. He and his wife, Danny, just launched a Patreon, OPL together, Our Painted Lives. And you can tell he's been thinking about all of the things that we discuss for months. I kind of just invited him and just let him talk. And it's incredible. It's insightful. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. And as always, he is very generous with what he chooses to share, the hard lessons he's learned in fun stories, and the advice he gives as well. If you're looking to engage in a Patreon page or start a community for other artists and get your work out there, get your work seen, he's really honest about how much work that's going to take you. And he has some advice for us that I found insightful, especially as I start my journey with my podcast. Thanks for being here. I hope you have fun with the conversation. Hey, Nicolas, thanks for being on the Open Sketchbook podcast.
No, thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. I've been a huge fan of your work for just countless years. I can't remember
Same.
when...
I think I'm older than you, but you know.
I think the first painting of yours that I saw that stopped me in my tracks was the painting of your father. And you've done a more recent one since then, where you were playing with proportion and tonality and everything. But that first one just felt so remarkably different from anything I had seen before. And I was studying painting and composition and decision making, and I was like, this painting, it feels very personal. And I didn't know you. I didn't know who he was. Anything like that. So I just saw that image, and it just stopped me. What was the deal with that painting?
Dude, I'll be 100% honest, and I've told this story before, not many times, but I've been honest about telling this story before.
Yeah.
My dad would have never ever agreed upon me painting him like that. In a very vulnerable state. Like, it was early in the morning. He had his robe on, bare legs, white as they can be. But my dad was, he was a teacher. He was a scientist. He thought very highly of himself. He was incredibly intelligent, like insanely intelligent. So he was a person that cared about the way you would depict him. Like, he would totally care about the way I would have painted him if he had any say in it. But I don't think he was the sort of person that would have just trusted me to paint him and wouldn't have said anything. He would have wanted to see what I was doing, how it was going along. He would be checking on the painting constantly. And this was a time when I had come back from New York, so I was painting in my parents' house. So he would have seen this painting develop, for sure. And I remember I was literally in a setup like this. I was in front of our computer that was as old as you could be. And I had a camera. I had a Sony camera at the time, but it was one of those size lens Sony cameras it was a nice camera when it came out, but it was like one of those first few Sony cameras that, yes, had a nice lens to it. It was attached to the body, but it was the time when you would press the shutter and it would take like 3 seconds for a photo to actually shoot. So I remember every time I would use the camera, because that was the camera that I would use for all my references. You would have to point it and then click, and then it would go beep 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 beep, and then it would shoot as if you had a timer or something. But it was ridiculous. But those were the cameras at the time, so I never thought about it. So I remember me being in the computer in the morning, just using the computer, had my camera right next to me, and my dad just sits down, wakes up, or he was probably having some breakfast, and he walked up, and then he sat down, and he was talking to me. And I just kind of looked off to the side, and I saw him, and I was like, are you kidding me? This is so good. I was like, no, my God. And I thought, if I had the chance to tell him to pose for me, that would be the painting that I would want to do of him. But I was like, I don't have the courage to tell him to pose like this. And he would have said, no, what are you kidding me? And he probably would have stood up and left. And all I did was literally, I'll use the camera that I have right here. But all I did was grab my camera that was right next to me. And I just, without looking, dude, it was no look. And I just turned it to the side. I pressed the shutter, and I was like, this is ridiculous, because it's going to take 4 seconds for this shot to go off. So he's going to move, or it's going to be blurry, or it's going to be a mess. But I was like, I need to try it. So I went like this, and I pressed it, and it took the photo like immediately. I was like, this is a miracle. I've never taken pictures with this camera like this. And I took the photo, and as soon as I took the photo, he stood up and left. As soon as, because he was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, oh, no, nothing. I'm just, forget it. So I had this camera. I didn't even look at the camera. I didn't even look. I was like, it's probably blurry. It probably, it's a mess. These were like 2 megapixels photos. I was like, nah, this is dumb. So I kept, working at the computer, and I was like, I don't know. I'll take a look at it later. And I remember looking at it later, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I was like, this is the greatest photo I've ever taken. And I didn't even paint that photo for years. Because
Really?
I was like, yeah. Because I was like, I know I need to paint this. I don't think I'm at a good place right now to paint it. And it just so happens that at that moment I was a little bit of a mess. I was working with a gallery in Boca in Florida. So that should tell you a lot. And I was doing well. I mean, way better than a young painter should be doing. And it had to do with like that market and the fact that it was inflated and the fact that there was an art bubble. But I was doing insanely well and getting way more money than I deserved, to be completely honest. And this is the weird part. Steve Assel has to come to Colombia. So this was a weird thing, a personal thing, but I'm not going to get into that. Nothing bad, but it was a personal thing. And he calls me. Well, he writes to me, I feel, like emails me. And he's like, hey, I'm in Bogota. And I was like, what? What do you do? What? He's like, yeah, if you want to hang out. And I was like, yeah, sure, of course. Because he was my teacher from SVA. And so I go to where Steve was, and, he was staying with some people. And he's like, so let me know, what are you doing? And I brought some catalogs and some photos of what I was doing. And he was like, dude, are you making good money? And I was like, well, yeah, way more than I thought I would make at this, stage of my career, early career. Yes, a ton more. And he was like, well, I'm glad. But are you, and he was like, he literally said this. He was like, are you signing these paintings? And I was like, what?
Oh.
Yeah, because he was like, well, they could be like anonymous or something. And it kind of makes sense. It kind of made sense. He's always been open about this, but when he was doing like romance cover stuff and illustration, he would usually not sign those, or he would just he didn't like people associating him with that sort of work. He much rather have people go to forum and see like these amazing paintings. And he told me that, and he was like, well, they're just not great painting. It's just I mean, I'm glad that you're doing good. I think he was very honest when saying that. But he was like, I'm glad, but, it is what it is. And, dude, he destroyed me. That destroyed me. Like, literally destroyed me.
He's always been such, like, a genuine, honest artist. Because he was one of my teachers, too. And it was getting to work with him was one of the highlights of my education. And
incredible.
then I got to TA for him, so I got to really work with him. And it's just like what you're saying. Is just very honest, very clear.
Very, very honest. But it didn't come from a bad place.
No,
at all.
Super generous. I
never ever saw Steve. I mean, he's tough, but it never comes from a bad place. Never, ever, ever. Because he loves this stuff. He loves drawing. He loves painting. Adores it.
It's his whole life. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was like genuine, interesting what I was doing. He was really kind of like wanting to see what I was doing, and that was his genuine response, and I really appreciated it. And so when that happened, I was like, F this, I have to do these. I have to change right now. And I did 2 paintings, I remember at the time. I was working on the 2 of them like almost at the same time. And one of them was the one of my father. And it was like an 80 by 60 painting. It was as big as the room that I was painting it on. I was propping it up on top of my stereo, of my little boombox.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah. That was it. Like the height of my little boombox and to the ceiling. That was the height of the painting.
Was this painting larger than the other ones that you were working on at the time?
No. See, that's the thing. No, I had gotten used to like understanding larger formats, not super large formats. I mean, there's people that paint enormous paintings,
right.
But at least large for me. I didn't really have a studio. I was painting in a room in our apartment. And it was, it was like, okay, I'll fit as big a painting as I can fit here. But yeah, I was doing 80 by 60 paintings for that gallery in Boca because, of course, if they were bigger, they literally told me this. They were like, if you paint smaller, they're going to hang it in the bathroom. But if you paint 80 by 60, like we can charge good money for it, and the people are going to think it's serious painting. It was ridiculous. It
Yeah.
was like the stupidest thing that they could have told me.
I've heard that often.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
if you paint even bigger, it only can go to a museum, right? Like things like that, and you're like, come on, come on.
galleries. I mean, they don't small paintings, small prices. Big paintings, big prices. So they much rather like even if it takes a little bit, much rather just them try to sell like bigger paintings, of course. And
Yeah.
at that time, again, there is such a thing as an art bubble, and it was ridiculous. Like in the late to early 2000s, it was absurd, like super inflated prices. So I was okay with the size. I remember I did do like an underdrawing and an underpainting. I even said like, you know what? I'm pre-mixing my values. First time I had ever done that because I had never received like a super traditional education. Like Steve
Okay.
teaches you how to paint, but he won't really teach you how to paint. He's just like, hey, this is how I do it. Go ahead.
It
Like
feels a
he's
lot more like drawing and then response to color and light.
right.
It's yeah.
I mean, he is. I love him to bits, but he's the most horrendous person that you could ever have as a first time oil painting
Oh
teacher.
no, not
Jesus
not first
Christ,
time because
that's like
you're just watching magic.
no, exactly. That's like I don't know how to swim, and there's a frozen lake, over there, and he just shoves you into the lake. So no, it's very difficult to understand, what he's doing. It took me a long time to really interiorize what he was doing, but I loved him as a teacher. I adored him as a teacher. So size was okay. I did, underdrawing, underpainting, grisaille. I mixed, what did I mix? With Castle Earth, I remember. So Van Dyke Brown and white. I didn't go full ivory black or anything. And pre-mixed everything, tubed everything. I had all these tubes from Pearl that I had bought that I had never used. I was like, I'll pre-mix color, never. So I pre-mixed all these tubes, and I actually loved it. I ended up doing what, about maybe 10 paintings with pre-mixed like a pre-mixed grayscale.
Oh, that's
I
great.
actually adored it. I've never
Yeah.
done it, but again, never, because I was like, this is too much work. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And this painting in particular, it kind of got better and better and better as I was painting it. But I have to say that painting in particular, it's almost like, I don't know. It's one of those things that when I saw the image, and of course, it was my dad, so I could, just imprint it with like an energy and an experience that can only come from a son, I guess.
Sure, sure.
But it was already good. Like you saw that, if you would have seen that photo, because I don't have it, but if you would have seen that photo, you would have been like, oh yeah, this is amazing. It is almost like something that somebody would have dreamed of setting up in terms of like the light and the color and composition, the pose, the sort of energy of the pose, the gesture. It was perfect. I often say that all I had to do was paint it, which is stupid, but it was one of those. It was one of those. And then years later, I did another one where I tried to actually sent that to the BP, but I didn't get through. So I got through just to the place where they judge the actual painting,
Hmm.
and then it didn't go through. It was the same size, so I wanted to revisit that size and revisit it with my father, and it was different because my father probably died a couple of years after that, and but he was getting a little more fragile with the passing of the years. So it was also me acknowledging like the fragility of my father, and me being like a completely different painter. So I was way into different things at that moment, and I really like that. I love that I gave myself the chance to see my father in those two very different ways, throughout the years. So I was very happy for that opportunity. We sometimes don't think about painting that way, or representing, our subject matter or people that we love, whatever it is, that way. But I really appreciate like having painting as a companion to record my time with my wife now, Danny, my kids growing up. It's quite magical. It's really incredible.
Yeah, it's a really powerful thing. I think all the time it's kind of the opposite of like being a surgeon. Like you figure like a surgeon probably doesn't do their best work on a relative, but I
Mm.
feel like a painter probably does.
Yeah.
There's that extra something special that we
Yeah.
can like tease out.
Yeah. I still have a memory of my dad, hypercritical, my dad, but when he saw the first time I painted my mom, um, and I was somewhat happy with it. I mean, I was young, and he was like, "Oh, it's a nice painting. Who is she?" And I was like, "Okay, that's great. Thank you, Dad. That's all I needed to know." So I still have like that memory of what it means, like the pressure that comes with painting somebody you love and painting somebody that your family recognizes, not just from an image but deeply recognizes. Like that's a shared life experience, which is really really tough. That
Really
almost
tough.
paralyzed me with my kids
Really?
when I wanted to paint them when they were little. I thought I was never good enough. I was like, no, I can't do a good job with my kids. And then I was like, what are you talking about? Like, just paint your kids. Like, I just thought I was convinced that I just wasn't good enough. And so I thought, I'm just going to paint them. Then it's not going to look like them. It's not going to feel like them. And there's nothing more embarrassing for myself, not for other people, but for myself to try to like paint my children and then look back at the painting and the painting staring back at you is not your kid. So I was like, no, I can't. And one day I was like, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. So, and I started painting them and I haven't stopped. So I realized
That's amazing.
yeah, I realized that I don't have like a light touch. I don't have, things that you would associate with painting, like, children, like the innocence of children. I don't have any of those things. I'm like heavy-handed and very expressive, but it never mattered. I realized that, it doesn't matter. It's your kids. So,
Yeah. There's that's really funny to hear that. I mean, it totally makes sense, but I feel like with your work, you might not have those things, but you have this like unflinching investigation. Like you just go for it. Like you're in those paintings and you're always kind of playing with everything. And I mean, I feel like you're not locked into a preconceived idea of a finish or anything like that when you work.
I try to convince myself that I don't, because you have to train I mean, for a lot of us that love this, chances are that your brain is full. Like it's it's almost like exceeding its capacity with like images that you respect and you adore, and people that you look up to. And for every subject matter, I have this like dumb painter memory that I just associate everything with paintings, and I remember a ton of paintings. And so it's very difficult to have to not take that out, because I don't think that stuff is ever going to leave my brain, but teach yourself that those are other people's paintings, that like those belong to them and their life choices and their experiences, and like a context that is completely alien to you, completely different to anything that I could ever understand. And you start realizing, okay, for me to find that, then I just have to be okay with what my life is and all the variables that make up my life. And I have a life that's very fluid, let's say, fluid. So
Sure.
I think my efforts in life have revolved around my family, my kids. And recently, I mean, we've been like almost nine years together with Danny, and we just
Wow.
recently got married. But
That's fantastic.
yeah, we're super happy. We're like meant for each other. So, but it's always revolved around life. Like my painting, I always thought at the beginning when I was younger that I had to have life on the one hand, and then I would just have my painting life somewhere in a shed, somewhere in a studio, lying elsewhere, and that I would travel from my life to my shed and then back to my life. And life taught me that it's not going to work that way. Like having kids just
sometimes just not possible.
No.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's other people that can compartmentalize things like that, and they have a family life or a family dynamic that allows them to do that, and that's totally fine. I'm not judging anyone. For me, it just didn't, and I didn't want that either. I wanted to be like a super active part of my children's life, and with Danny, with my partner at the time when we started a couple of years ago working together, and now my wife, like we've always tried to make this about teamwork and about being kind of like actively part of each other's lives. For me, it had to be, okay, life has to intersect in every way possible with painting. And when you realize that it has to do that, it means that you can't be set on your ways. It means that sometimes, you have an hour worth of painting, when you thought you had 8 hours worth of painting in front of you. And sometimes you have to fit in. I remember doing some of the sketch work that I was doing a couple of years ago. I remember doing that at my mother's house while my kids were like eating and just fooling around at the dining table, just messing everything up. And me just kind of painting there in front of everyone. And I was like, oh, it's okay. It was me telling myself, okay, it's okay. Just kind of navigate this and do as much as you can or as little as you can, but just be invested in whatever time you have. And I think that appreciation of time probably led me to understand that, painting is anything. Painting doesn't mean, it means the greatest paintings that you'll ever see. It means like Rembrandt and Velázquez and Goya and whatever, however you understand the greatest of paintings. But it also means little moments of painting, and it's okay. It was totally okay for me to understand that I had to find that space. And that space meant me being flexible and me being like okay with redefining constantly what I could do with paint or the expectation that I had with paint. But like I said when I started speaking about this, that you have to sort of train your brain to do something that it's not used to doing, because initially what you understand is that a painting is finished when it looks like one of those paintings, when it looks like a finished painting hanging at a gallery or a finished painting hanging in a museum. And paintings that are validated through a ton of like devices, like your teachers validate them, or you see them on a show and people say it's the greatest thing ever. And look, it sold for $500,000. Sure. Or look at this collection in a museum. It's very tough to reorganize your brain to sort of push all that kind of critical thought aside and say, well, okay, what is it for me? What is a painting for me? How do I define that for myself? And it's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think that exercise has stopped since it began, let's say.
Well, you are one of the most prolific painters I think I've ever seen. Listening to everything that you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, because you found a way to just inhabit the practice as completely as possible without sacrificing the life that you want to live. Like you found a way to make it a part of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was tough though. I things are not super balanced all the time. When we started our Painted Lives channel with Danny,
yes,
dude, we were working 7 days a week. And yes, it was pandemic, but both my kids were with us in our apartment, and we would have to be like, hey, you have to be quiet right now because Dad is fumbling over a voiceover, and it's probably going to take me an hour and a half so I can record 20 minutes of a voiceover. So please be quiet, and please. So it was tough. It was very, very tough. It was super, super difficult trying to carve that space and finding balance. So not everything has been kind of organic and simple, but the intent of it being so, of it being like a very, very simplified experience that feels kind of seamless between your life and your painting life. The intent has always been there, and the hope that everything can sort of meet in a fashion that is kind of, it feels like equitable to everyone. Like my children feel that they have access to me, and I feel that I can stop and speak to Danny. That has always been my want. Like I've recognized that I need those sort of things. Like I'm not the type of painter that I was when I was younger, that I could just go to an apartment like I did probably 18, 19 years ago. I had an apartment, like a 3-bedroom apartment, old, super old. And it was totally empty, but I had it as a studio, and I would just go there, paint. I would go to class because I was teaching, then come back, paint some more. So I would probably leave at 7 in the morning, and I'd return at 7 at night, like each day. And I was like, yeah, I'm young. This is cool. This is awesome. Like it feels like I'm a painter, teacher. This is everything.
Right.
Nowadays, I look back at that nowadays, and I'm like, never.
It's so much.
You couldn't pay me right now to change my life back to that again. It just doesn't work for me anymore. So it's good. And now we're trying something else out. We just started this month our Patreon, which is really different also. But I'm so satisfied with how it feels for me, because I love to talk while I work. I love to verbalize challenges while they appear while I'm working. And I love to try to figure things out while I'm working. And I think that that's super cool. So we're hoping that that is something that also can also begin to be part of what we do. But we're super excited. But it's always been like it feels like it's a progression from where I started. That was a very traditional place with, I was a gallery painter and I was doing well. I mean, I don't want to say like I don't want to oversell it, but I was doing well, and I was teaching to what we're doing right now, which is like a completely different way to understand painting. But I think it's a beautiful way to socialize painting. So we're super super happy and hopeful that this works.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good things there. Your journey from being a gallery painter or a sort of a studio painter in one way, and then how you've transitioned and made social media work for you,
Hmm.
that's a nightmare for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I feel like it sounds like you went through the same growing pains that everyone goes through.
Yeah.
But you had such an amazing support that you were able to pull that off as a team. And I think that's a really big deal. I mean, what was that like when you started to get into the social media stuff?
The only reason I did it was because of Danny. That's the truth. 100%. Like I've credited her always, but it's I'm not being kind. Like no, it was her.
It's a lot
It was
of
her
work.
because because I'm older. So when I would look at social media, I was like, yeah, that's for a generation of younger artists. But that's like my ship left. I was like, no, dude, I'm bound to galleries and to being sort of miserable or doing well. I mean, I was doing well, but it's just like working for a year and a half or 2 years for a show and then just crapping your pants hoping that you sell everything or at least like 80% of everything. It's tough. It's really tough. It's a tough thing. It's a tough life.
The other thing that I was thinking about in regards to your work, because I look through your awesome books pretty often, and I'll bring them to my classes and show my students the variation of composition, aesthetics, and things that you're investigating and playing with they're not ever something different than who you are, but it's a wide breadth of all of those things.
Oh yeah. So galleries would hate me. They would. The galleries that I ended up sticking with, and especially here in Colombia, but they were international. One of them was a super super successful international gallery. But I stuck with them because they just told me, just do whatever you want. We don't care.
Wow.
Do whatever you want. But
that's a lot of
galleries.
trust.
Yeah, but galleries usually would see my work and they were like, "What the? I don't even know what to expect from you. Like, what is this? What am I looking at? Because this doesn't look like one portfolio. This looks like 20 portfolios."
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That was super tough for me because I'm super curious. I'm very not quite restless. My brain is restless. I'm not a sort of, person that can't, has to do things quickly or can't. No. I'm super patient and I can stick with the painting for however long. And so I'm totally fine with just understanding the patience that is necessary when doing a painting. But my brain is so excitable, I feel. I just get ideas and ideas and ideas, and I get like these questions that always arise that it's like, why don't we try this out? Like, you can't imagine what that's going to look like because it's not part of your experience. So why don't you give yourself a chance to see what happens? Like, let's see what happens. And that became the sort of prevailing thought in my kind of practice. And I just allowed myself to say, okay, let's try this out. And then let's try this out. And then let's try this out. And I've always said that that's the only reason that what we did for the first couple of years with our Painted Lives, that's the only reason we were able to make it work. Because I don't care who you are. Like I'm not saying that what I did was, particularly like impressive in any way. But I understand what it means to like be excited about what you're painting all the time. And it's very tough. It's very tough. Like
it's really hard.
Yeah, it happens with drawing or painting, but I've looked at paintings that it's taken me like a month and a half to paint, and I've had that feeling that everyone has that you're 20 days into the painting and you're looking at it and you're like, I hate it. I don't care. I don't know why I started this painting. It's stupid. It's dumb. I don't know what excited me about this. This is now I have to just sit down here and like eat up all this frustration and just finish it. And then say, oh, just finish it. Just do the best of a bad job at finishing it and be done with it. And so I know what that feels like. I 100% know what that feels like. And so to find a way like mentally where every single day that we were doing work with Danny, that we would be excited about it, that you would be like, yes, I'm going to sit down and think this is going to rock. Like this is going to be awesome to sit down and paint, regardless of what the resulting painting looked like. Like it could have been good, bad, whatever, mid. It doesn't matter. Like none of that mattered. It was just about being excited about it, being like really wanting to paint it. Because I realized very quickly that if I wasn't excited, it was never going to work. Like people can see through that immediately. Like if you're bored with what you're doing, everyone notices, like nobody cares. So I just had to find like the way to make it super exciting for me day after day after day after day after day after day. And one of the ways that I realized that I had to like, kind of once again teach myself to be excited about these things was just like, try things out. Like if you've never tried this out, try it out. If this exposes your shortcomings, it doesn't matter. If this makes you feel vulnerable, it doesn't matter. If this makes you feel insecure, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't put your abilities in the best light, it doesn't matter. Just paint. Don't paint to try to impress other people. Just paint. Paint for yourself, paint to learn, paint to find the joy in it. And I did that, and that made an incredible difference between just having a project and understanding it as a social media project where we were hoping to, yes, have people watch videos, but ultimately have people purchase, very affordable paintings. It turned that, which was like the core exercise, let's say, but it turned that into an actual exercise in painting, which obviously had to be relevant for me so that I could enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing to watch that unfold and to see those challengers turned into like weekly series and to see you sort of like after 3 or 4 different variations return to earlier things and just go, all right, I feel like I learned something. Let's see if I can go back.
Yeah.
And it was really amazing. And it felt like I was with you in the studio sometimes where
That's
you're
awesome.
like, that part's not the best. Let me keep going on it,
Yeah.
And I was like, me too, man. Like
that's
that
awesome.
kind of thing. It was really cool.
We just did because I was supposed to be in like an alternate reality. I'm a comic book artist. That's what I started at SVA as a cartooning major.
For a cartooning major.
Yeah. So there is a universe where that would have been my life, and I would have been obviously super happy. But I started doing, it's nostalgia plus interest that had never left me. So I started doing like WWF, WWE superstars, like, old wrestlers, which turned into like, I should do like comic book stuff. And I started painting like Rogues Gallery, Batman villains.
I loved it.
Which turned into like Sinister Six, villains. And I recently did like an electro painting for our patron. And it was so super cool. Thank you. But it was super cool because when I had my block in and I told myself, oh, I'm going to solve these little bits like when I paint, because I had done like a kind of like not an underdrawing, but a drawing that was like a prelim study. And I had done like a color sketch, and I was like, I think I have an idea. I think I have a grasp of what I need to paint. And I started painting and I did the block in, but I was like, oh, I think this is going to be difficult. And when I started to try to articulate like the very specifics of the dude, that session, dude, I thought I was going to be able to do the guy like in a single session, like after the block in. I had to stop midway, like after 2.5 hours. I was like, I'm shot. I'm drained. This is ridiculous because I don't know what I'm doing. At the end, I reached the place where I knew I could stop, because only at that moment I was like, okay, I get it. I think I get it now. And it began to take shape. But I was like, this is ridiculous. This is so tough. And I never realized it was so tough. Like I wasn't overconfident, but I told myself, no, we could work this out. Like, you've done this. Like, we can do it through just paint. You paint through it. You search for it. You paint through it.
Hmm.
It was so tough. There was a moment there where I was miserable. I was like, my God, what am I doing? Because I'm recording these videos and I'm sucking right now. And but I think that we've been able to carve a spot, in what we do. We're being like painfully honest about process. It's amazing. I would have wanted that so much when I was younger, to not have these people like Steve Assel is bigger than life, and Max Ginsberg was my other teacher, was incredible too. So I would never see them falter. Like they seemed like they were completely in charge. Anything they touched was amazing. Steve could go around. We were like, what, 35 people in his class. He could go around and paint for the 35 of us. And each time he would sit down, he would make it amazing.
I
And I was
know.
like, this is incredible. This is amazing. But meanwhile, you try to like kind of grapple with your own experience where you suck every time. Every time you try to paint, it's like terrible. Every time is horrible. Every time it's like shortcomings after shortcomings, and you recognize things that you're not good at. And it's very frustrating. So I would have loved to hear somebody say, like, oh, no, don't worry. It's tough. It's always tough. It's always, always, always tough. It doesn't get better. It's not supposed to get better either. Like you're supposed to fight through it. The fighting through it is what makes you an artist. Like
There's that special magic when you have to kind of earn it and work around your usual procedure or process. I always have to tell myself, if it goes the same every single time, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not thinking about what my goals or my aims are. If I know what it looks like at the end before I begin, am I really pushing myself and trying to find something fresh and new and rich?
Yeah. That happened to me at some point doing those bokeh paintings. Yeah, where before Steve said anything,
You just felt it?
I just looked at the painting and I knew I would have barely started a painting, and I sat down. I would have like my high chair, but I have a high stool, and I would sit down and look at that thing, and I already knew what it was going to look like at the end. I was like, okay,
Exactly.
I guess I need a month.
Let
And
me just crank out this product.
yeah, and I was like, but I see it already, and I was miserable because all I felt I had to do was just sit down and paint. It was like just sit down and paint, and you'll be fine. But it was boring. I would have killed myself if that was my life for the next 50
Right.
years. Like that's miserable.
So there's some painters who will hear that and go, "That's what I would need. That's what I want,"
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and then there's other ones who are just like, I think that's the worst thing that could ever happen for me, because the joy of the process is everything. So do you find that you are someone who's excited by the prospect of the end goal, but you're really more process oriented?
yes, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
I do enjoy finished, not like whatever, resolved paintings.
Right, right, right.
Of course, I like when people reach whatever they understand as the place where they, see a painting echo their intent,
Hmm.
whatever that place is, because sometimes when we say finish, there's a distorted definition to that. But a finished painting is a Bouguereau and is a Whistler. So it doesn't matter. There's no way you could put those two paintings and say, "Oh yeah, I can understand what a finished painting looks like." But I do like the fact that it's a process that culminates. Like it's a process that if I trust the artist, and I obviously do, if I trust the artist, they're telling me this is how far I wanted to bring this, and this is where I wanted to drop this off. Like this is the place that the painting should live in. And I love
Right.
that. I really, really appreciate that. So I'm super interested in that and getting to a place, but I can never anticipate it nowadays. I never really quite understand what that place looks like. But I know that if I pay attention throughout the painting, it almost appears in front of you if you're paying attention. I mean, I'm sounding super esoteric.
Yeah,
But
but it's good because anything else is prescriptive.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you don't
Yeah.
want to,
And I guess that's fine. Once again, like I think we both are saying that works for a ton of painters.
oh yeah.
Especially if you're identified with a product and you do really, really well, and the gallery is expecting that, and your market is expecting that finished product, and you're okay. You get a ton of satisfaction reaching that point with every single one of those paintings. That's amazing. That's great. Oh,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you found that for yourself, and you defined painting for yourself. That's excellent.
You found where you fit. Yeah.
But when you realize that it's not for you, that's my case. You have to search elsewhere. Like you have to try to find the answer somewhere else, because it's not gonna be there. The nature of working for a gallery and making these kind of consistent paintings that become products. They're objects that are a product that have an expectation, and they're kind of bound by also market laws and rules that
Totally.
govern like the gallery system. That takes you somewhere else, which is fine. If you want to take that trip and do that, awesome. Awesome. I took it for a bunch of years of my life. I think I did well in it, but I took it for long enough for me to realize, oh yeah, this is not me. This is not, I don't care for this. I really don't. I thought I did. At the beginning, it was when Steve was selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars for him, that sounded great. That sounded amazing. I was like, yes, I want that money. Of course, who doesn't? And not because of the money, but I was like, this will give me a chance to paint for the rest of my life. Like, this will
Exactly.
kind of provide for me the space that I need so I can paint. And this is amazing. But I was too young and sort of impressed by those things, which are fine, totally fine. But then I realized, no, life can be simpler, and you could just find your own way, and you don't need to sell paintings for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you could find a path that suits you and suits your family and suits, whatever it is that you want to do. You could 100% find it. So yeah, I'm happy for that.
That's fantastic. It also seems like you're painting more than maybe you would have been had you kept on that path.
Maybe.
You're
I
painting
was
a lot.
Yeah, but I was painting a lot of bigger paintings before.
Sure. So yeah, so
So
what was it
yeah,
like changing the scale? Was the
weird.
scale change
Yeah, weird.
practical like it was for the purpose of the
No,
videos, or
because I changed it. I had changed it prior to our painted lives for the videos, because I had stopped working for a gallery that I loved, and the gallerist, like the owner, I adored him. He was incredible. Like, he is, when I look back, he's going to be one of those really important people in my life. I think I was with him like 8 years, a little over 8 years, and they were amazing, amazing. I mean, he promoted me, he pushed me, he gave me liberties, he really, really cared for me. So I adored that dude.
so
But
what happened?
he closed the gallery. Yeah, he was, yeah. He closed the gallery. He was like, I think I'm done with this. Like, I love this, but
Which gallery
it was
was
here.
that?
It was called Quinta. Mauricio Quintana is the person, and this gallery was here, but it was an international gallery. We went to fairs all over the world. It was amazing. Yeah, we did really, really well. I think we sold. He was like, you paint whatever you want. It is my job to sell your paintings. And he was like, no, that's on me. And he would tell me, you do you. Then it's my job to sell them. And I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, yes, that's what you want to hear. It was amazing. But yeah, he closed his gallery, and that to me was like a punch in the gut, because I was growing to be, I mean, fondly dependent, but dependent nonetheless of
Yes.
him, in the sense that, okay, he's providing me with a market and he's giving me all this liberty. And then I eventually found like a partner. Let's say he was like an intermediary between galleries and market. And, it was super cool working with this dude. He was like, hey, we need two paintings that are super large, or two large paintings. I'm talking like I'm ordering in McDonald's or something.
Right. Right.
But he was like, two large paintings and a medium one. And he was like, yeah, they like, when you repeat stuff or something.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
I'm making it, I'm oversimplifying it, but that was really it. And I was like, okay, that's gonna be X amount of money. And he was like, great. And he would give me the money straight, like before I finished the paintings. He would just give me the money.
Okay, so not quite an agent, but
Yeah, I mean, it
a
wasn't
little
kind of
bit.
like an agent, but because he dealt with so many, I mean, and he dealt with a lot of like cool galleries, like really good galleries, and he had like an amazing market, like access to a really, really amazing market, international market also. So good prices. He, like, we didn't start from zeros, so he was able to tell me like, okay, so let's say you said, oh, that's going to be 15 grand. And he was like, okay. And then next day he would bring 15 grand. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like, of course you want to paint with that sense of security. But the relationship with him, sadly, but it ended, not in the best of ways, but it ended. And I found myself like without grounding. Like I realized that I had depended so much on other people for my, for the socializing and the commercial like aspect of my work, that when they left, or when I left those relationships, let's say, I was alone and I felt super, super weird. And in my brain, I realized I have to change something about my painting. And I started painting on like a sketchbook. That was, I don't know, don't ask me why, but it was the way in which I kind of rebelled against being dependent and painting bigger and bigger and bigger for bigger prices, and just being caught in this thing where everything just had to be bigger and bigger and bigger. It sort of coincided with a painting of mine being at Basel in Miami, and somebody like a friend, or no, it wasn't a friend even. It was like one of my cousins, like second cousin, that he took a picture and he's like, I didn't know you were here. I went to Basel. I didn't know you were here. I was like, I'm not there. What are you talking about? I'm not going to Basel. And he shows me the photo of the painting and I'm like, what? Why is my painting there? And they had already paid me for that painting. It was like a large, it was a large painting. They had paid me like, I don't know. I think I asked something like 9 grand for that painting or something like that. And they had paid me for that. And I was like, oh, I was fine. I was like, yeah, this is totally fine.
How much was it listed for?
60,000. And it sold. Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? It drove me nuts. I mean, it drove me nuts more than it should have, but it drove me nuts. I was like, it wasn't about the part where I was wronged. Like that should have been 30 grand should have been mine. No, that wasn't it. It was just like, it just felt dirty. Everything felt dirty. Everything felt wrong.
Felt underhanded.
Yeah, it just felt wrong. Everything about it was like, why didn't they tell me at the beginning? Why didn't they tell me that? I would have been super proud of saying like, yeah, I was in Basel and it sold, and it's like everything was like, no, let's not tell him. We're going to sell this and it's going to reach a good, nice price, but let's not tell him. Like if he's still asking for 9 grand a painting, don't ruin that. Like
right.
we can turn 9 into 60.
They're not going to bring you with them.
No, of course not. Of course not. So that's secondary market, which people care for because that ups your prices, and eventually you can take advantage of that if you are willing to play that game. But I remember feeling like I don't want this. I just don't. This is too much. It's annoying. It's just, I don't want to think about these things. I want to think about like, yeah, I wanted like a fair price, and it's a fair price for me and it's a fair price for the buyer, and just keep that going. If everything's fair and balanced, like we don't need to do this. But of course, that's not how the art world works.
It's not how it works. It's not how it works.
Yeah, so I think at the time, I was just like I just fed up with it. And in my very primitive brain, I was like, okay, I'm painting big and it's big money. And I was like, F this, I'm going to go back to my sketchbook. I was like, I'm just going to paint in my sketchbook and not care and just do these little paintings in my sketchbook. And so it didn't feel weird. I mean, I remember feeling like going from big to small, yeah, it's a transition because you're used to your body using a lot of your body to paint. But after a little bit, I was like completely enamored by painting in a sketchbook. I was
and there's this thing too where when you go from painting big to painting small, it's not easier. It's not, it's just as difficult in a very subtle way, but it's just as difficult. You're not changing much.
No. No. One of my favorite paintings ever. This is like my top 5 paintings.
Okay.
Is a Mariano Fortuny. That's about postcard size. That's at the Prado of this little kid lying on the grass. So it's a little butt cheeks and little legs and 2 little feet. That painting just bowls me over. That painting is insane. Like it poses way more questions. And the coolest thing about that painting is that it's surrounded by 19th century historical paintings that are enormous. You look at them and it's like Casado de Alizal, Francisco Pradilla, some of the best painters of the 19th century, incredible painters. And I look at those and I'm like, because I love that sort of painting also.
Sure.
So I travel through those paintings. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you can't paint better than this. This is so good. But then I go to that small painting and I'm like, oh, forget it. I'm done. I'm done. This is like, nobody can paint as good as this. Like, this is as good as one can paint. As good as one can paint. It's insane, that painting. So in my brain, I've always been happy because I've never seen small paintings under like a different light. Like, I love Giovanni Boldini also. Like, Boldini does tiny paintings also that look enormous. I remember the first time I saw some paintings of his. I mean, he does large paintings too, but I remember seeing the reproduction, and then when I would see the painting, I was like, wait, what?
This is it.
This is this small?
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this is insane, because he paints bigness. Like, he never sacrificed like these ideas of bigness while he was painting, regardless of the size. So yeah, no, I felt fine. I felt really okay. And yes, 100% they are the same. It feels like painting. Nothing changes. Absolutely nothing. I still have people, I mean, God bless them, but I still have people that are like, okay, so your hiatus is great, very nice. Super glad that you did your sketchbook thing, your little thing. Super glad that you did your YouTube thing. When are you going back to serious painting? Like, when can you see? When can we see Yeah, and people say like complex compositions, and they'll throw words like that. I'm grateful that they want that for me, but I'm like, dude, painting is painting. It doesn't matter. Like, like a few months ago, I was like, you know what? I'm dying to paint an apple. I'm going to paint an apple. I was like jonesing for an apple. I was like, yes, I want to paint an apple. It kicked my ass. Like, I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? I was like, are you kidding me? I can't paint an apple? I was like, I thought this was going to be like, yeah, I'm going back to fundamentals. This is just going to be like, my tone, my highlight, my core shadow mass, reflected light, cast shadow. I was like, yeah, I want this. I want to do like like something you can pick up with your hands. Like, dude, I had to had to turn that painting into something entirely different because it was kicking my ass. And I was like, I can't see myself as a painter that can't paint an apple, but it was true. I was like, this is one of the toughest paintings I did last year. It was that stupid apple, apple.
That's got to feel great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Painting, yeah, it's another set of challenges. Like, sure, multi-figured compositions that are enormous, of course they're tough. Of course, like, that doesn't need explanation. Like, of course, that's going to take months or years to paint, and it's incredibly complex. It's really, really complex. Yes, like 100%, yes. But I also painted like a bag of change, like change in a plastic bag.
I remember.
Dude, that has to be one of the toughest paintings I've ever painted in my life. And I've done multi-figure compositions, and I don't care what anyone says. When I tried to paint that thing, I was like, how do you paint this thing?
It's
how
like
do you
a
make something that feels,
It's like a multi-figure composition if
it was
the figures
so
were all
difficult.
wrapped in plastic.
Dude, it was so... I'm not patting myself on the back for having made it. No. I'm not even talking about the painting. Painting's fine, but
the experience.
The experience was, Jesus Christ,
yes.
That was difficult. It was difficult. I remember my brain frying. It was probably like 6.5 hours of painting, and I was dying. I was like, this is not simple. It's just not simple. Trying to identify what makes change look like change. And not that you're like a hyper-realistic painter, that you're going to paint every single, a coin, every single little highlight, every single like face of that coin, of those coins. No. It's not that exercise. It's an exercise that you're like trying to tell yourself, can I understand what makes a bag full of change look like a bag full of change? Like, can I get to that? Which is completely different exercise than just like replicating every single aspect of your subject matter. So I don't want to hear it. Like, that's always going to be difficult. It's
those kind of days where you leave the space you're painting in, you go outside and you're like, why isn't anybody clapping? Like, don't they know what I just tried to do?
I don't remember even those. I have my favorites from I don't know. We've done hundreds and hundreds and
So
hundreds of
many
paintings.
beautiful
But
paintings.
thank you. But I have my favorites, which don't it doesn't mean that they're the best paintings, but they're my favorites because they felt there was something about them that when I was painting them, it didn't feel gentle. Like I love when paintings go like that. That's fine. When everything just kind of falls into place and you don't even feel like you're painting, fine. That's great. I mean, that's a lot of people wish for that to be every single session of a painting where you don't suffer. But that's fine for me. But the ones that I remember deeply, deeply are the ones where something happened, where something was off and I needed to change it, or when I was just searching for something like incessantly and I couldn't find it and couldn't find it. And I found it in the weirdest of places, like it wasn't painting, but I had to scrape something and redraw. And then I was like, okay, that looks kind of nice. That's what I was looking for. Those paintings are, for me, like with Danny, we've talked about it, like, oh, which are your favorites? And we both have lists that intersect a little bit, but don't. But yeah, but for me, they're very specific experiences. And I'm like, that's really, really good. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best painting. Like I don't measure them that way anymore. I don't see them as good or bad or better or worse. Like I know what a good painting looks like, but it serves no purpose. When you're painting so much, it serves no purpose if you're also making like a tier list of your paintings. Like, oh yeah, today was midday, and yesterday was great, and no. Like you can't survive if you're.
That's a great way to
constantly.
stress yourself out.
Yeah, you're gonna. Oh yeah, you can't. You
Yeah.
can't go back to painting because what happens if you have like 2 bad days in a row or 3? Then you can start thinking like, okay, I guess this isn't my week, and I should actually be resting maybe, or I don't
Maybe
know
I'll
what
take
I'm
some
doing.
time off. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, and the best thing to do is no, go back, paint through it, paint through it. Don't think about it, just paint. I mean, don't think about it as in don't dwell upon it because you have to reflect upon what you're doing when you're painting, but don't stop. Don't ever stop. I mean, I'm not asking people to overwork themselves, but don't allow those things to have power over you and to distort, things that are actually important about what you're doing. So for me, it was super important to just say like, oh yeah, this was cool today, but no, it didn't matter. It helped also that if I have my kids around me, it came a point where they don't care about my paintings. Like sometimes my daughter will go like, "Oh, you painted Doctor Doom. That's cool. That's cool." But it'll be a subject matter that makes them feel like, "Okay, that's kind of cool, Dad." People are telling you that that's a cool Doctor Doom. I'm with the people. So, yeah. But there's been other times where I think I'm kicking ass, and they walk by and they're like, it's like, whatever. You're painting.
That's
And I
just
like
what
that.
Dad does.
I
Yeah.
actually like that. I actually like that they're like, yeah, it's fine. It looks good. It looks okay, Dad. Yeah, yes, sure. You did well today. Okay, get
I
over
love
it.
that. Yeah.
So it's good. That helps.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying the podcast and you want maybe a little bit more, please check out my online community, The Virtual Studio. You can find all of our podcast episodes, including behind the scenes and virtual member exclusive episodes. The one I just recorded was about building a still life, specifically for the Still Life Club image reference set that I just released for March. It's a lot of fun. A lot of times artists don't really get taught how to build a still life or what goes into our thinking when it comes to making a still life. It was a lot of fun to break that down. So if you want to keep the conversation going, if you want to become a part of the conversation, ask our guests questions, give me suggestions of what you want to listen to, please show up, join the Virtual Studio online community. There will be a link in the show notes. Man, so yeah, the regularity at which you have to engage on social media and post, I mean, over the years for the Our Open Lives YouTube project and the regularity, like as a team, it was exciting to watch you both pull that off.
Thank you.
But do you have any tips for like artists who are feeling that social media like weight where they're like, I guess I have to find a way to share my work?
It's tough.
It's tough, right?
It's always going to be tough, and it's work also. I think
It
the
is
best
work.
way to understand it first, it's that it's work. So when we decided that we are going to be in charge of our own market, that's work. That's not just saying like, hey, here's the painting, throw money at the screen. It's like, hey, I'm amazing. Look at the painting. You guys fight over it over there. No, of course not. That's ridiculous. A lot of people have that attitude, which is understandable because sometimes their product is amazing, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
That is not, how you engage with that aspect of commercializing your work. It is a job. It is a job, and you have to treat it like a job, like an aspect of what you do. And the same thing with socializing. The thing is, when particularly people like me from my generation, that we just thought of, I just need a good gallery that commands like nice prices, that deals with a nice, healthy market. And so I don't have to deal with any of that. I just have to paint, show up, not look like a mess, and be nice with people in that opening night, and that's it. That's it. Because everything else, the socializing aspect is taken care of by the gallery at the opening, and they have people working round the clock trying to show your paintings and just speak in very weird ways about you, but that makes you sound like super exciting, and the commercial part, that's the business of the gallery. So you don't care. You just found a price that you were both happy with, that the gallery feels that they can ask their market for that price, and that they feel it's fair. And you were like, yeah, okay. But then you don't think about it anymore. You don't. So we've been kind of trained in a way to not care about it. And that's not a good thing.
That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. So when you realize that you have to care about it, then
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you have to look at, like, both Danny and I, we hate numbers and stats, and we never look at anything. Never. We've never paid for ad money. Never. We can say that, like, pure, like, people could actually look it up. If I could give my account to somebody and say, like, show me where I've paid for anything, because data would be there. No, we've never paid. We don't care about it. We always think that things work when they organically work. Like, if something organically grows, then it works. If a market has a need for what you do organically, then it's easier. So we always want it easier. We always wanted it to be natural. So we don't look at those things. We don't care if it's up or down, or if we don't care. We really don't. Because the moment you start paying attention to that, then that becomes your life. Then that becomes the one thing that you care about. Like, we lost viewers, we lost followers, or this post is doing better than this, which means that maybe paintings like these do better. And that's so, like, antithetical from what I do, because what I do is I paint whatever I want. When people go like, oh, what are you going to do next? And then suddenly I paint like the Vulture from Spider-Man. People are like, what the why are you doing that? Like, where did that come from? And I'm like, it comes from me not caring about what anyone says, and just me painting for myself and being happy about it. But what I do mean, so we don't look at stats or numbers or graphs or anything. We don't. We really don't. But what I do think we care deeply for is saying, like, how can we show this to people? How can we, like, engage with people? Like, if we want people to be part of our community, what does that mean? What expectation do people have of you if they expect you to sort of generate a community? And that usually means being active and being an active part of something. That means caring about people and caring about what they do and commenting about what they do. And we were talking about Steve having, like, good intentions. Every time you're critical with somebody, you have the best of intentions. You want people to grow alongside you. You want them to also help you grow. And so I think that's the toughest part, that you actually have to care. You have to care. You can't fool people into believing that they're going to be a community because deep down inside you just want the market. Because people are not stupid. They'll see through that. So if you really want a community, then grow a community and be part of a community and be active in your community. Be kind to your community. Give time to your community. So if you're not interested in doing any of those things, if everything that I said, you're like, I think I get it, but I'm just not, I don't want to do that, dude. I just want to make a painting and get paid. Then find a place where you make a painting and you get paid. And you don't have to you don't have to deal with any of this. You don't, because you don't. But if you realize that, like me, that maybe you're not built for just getting into these gears that are like, just the way in which big galleries operate. If you're just not built for that, and I'm not, I don't know. I'm not that person. Then you have to find other ways of doing it. And if you decide eventually that it is your responsibility to deal with this market and to deal with the community that you want to generate, that you want to start, then do it. Then do it. But do it truthfully, do it honestly, do it because you enjoy it. Don't do it. Don't fake it. It's ridiculous to fake it because people will know. People will realize that it's not part of you to do any of that. That all you want is like their money, and so don't. People are savvy. People have grown up with social media now. They know. They know. So you're not fooling anyone. But if you want to do it, I think there's a beautiful place there that's difficult because everything is difficult. None of this is easy. So take that out of your brain. It's not easy. It's hard work. It's like everything in life. It's supposed to be hard work. You're supposed to earn stuff. But if you decide to do it, then it's awesome. Like Danny and I are super excited now with our Patreon because it felt like we start from zeros again. Like it literally felt like, you know what? We have to earn it now. We have to earn it. And I love that feeling. With both of us are like, this is a new challenge and it's different and it's awesome. And I don't expect, thousands of people coming in like the first day saying, oh yeah, of course, here's money. No. I've never, ever, ever felt comfortable with that. I've always felt, no, just give me a chance to earn it. Like if we deserve something, great. I feel that we deserve it, but give me a chance to earn it and to earn it through hard work and honesty. Like, I think that's the only way that things work. Everything else is just business and fine. If you're in it for business, then yeah, go. There's tons of ways in which you can make money, I guess, but it's never been, I want to, live a life where I can take care of my children and, I can buy a statue of Batman. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course. So I'm not speaking about this austere life, that if that's what you want, great. But no, I want the things that I care for. And if I want to take care of my kids and I want to work hard for them, then sure, I'll find a way to make this work. But if money was the only drive that I had, which is sometimes it's what people see when they see followers, they just see money. I've never done anything with the followers that I have, and it's not a ton, but I've never done anything. No sponsorships, no nothing, because I don't care to. Like a lot of people are like, dude, with that you should be getting X amount of dollars a month, and I'm like, no, dude, don't talk to me about that. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't work. So I much rather feel like give me a chance. Give me a chance to prove that I can work for you, that I can do cool content for you, that I love what I do. Because, both Danny and I, she's integral part of every editing, part of the video setting, everything. Like there would have been no Our Painted Lives if it wasn't for Danny. So when the two of us are together, we love what we do. We absolutely love what we do. Like nobody could challenge that. And all we ask is like, give us a chance to show you that we love what we do, that we really genuinely care about what we do. I think that's the only way these things work. If not, then it's maybe it work for a little bit and then you're done with it, then you're bored, or then you're not making the money that you want and then you leave it behind. But for it to work, for you to put like all your energy into it, yeah, it has to be true or else it's just BS. And, there's enough of that in the art world. So
totally. And social media, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, your YouTube was a very popular fixture for years in my classroom and
thank you
in the community, and then I noticed that slowed down.
Yeah.
And then there was a break from that sort of thing.
Yeah, we couldn't do it all the time. So
yeah, so what was the decision like to sort of slow that down?
Because it never depended on like YouTube makes sense if you have 1 million followers. Like if you're Proco, for example.
Yeah.
Stan Prokopenko, if you're like Proco, he's fine. He's totally fine. If he makes videos that go past a number of views, then you're fine. You're totally fine. You can actually say, I make a living off of making videos. And then you change your life, and you gear it towards making videos because that's what's giving you not even money. It's giving you like really good money. So So for that to work, yeah, there needs to be a ton of, channel has to be really, really large, and it has to have like tons of interaction and views. Our channel was never that. We
Okay.
never had the hopes of it being that. I mean, I think we are at 70,000 people subscribed, but it was never meant to be a big channel. Never, never, ever,
Sure.
ever. It was just meant to be, a channel that we could share what we were doing, but it always it's almost like keep your eye on the ball. The ball was the painting because we just had to sell the painting, but because we were selling it at $250, we just had to make an ton of paintings.
Yes,
We had to make a
totally.
ton of paintings for us to give, because selling a painting for $250 sounds great for people that are buying. I would buy tons of paintings if they were 250
I bought
bucks.
one of your paintings. Yeah, thank
You
you.
bought like a really cool hand. Thank you.
I love that painting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Very
man.
generous. But that's great. But when you think like, wait, how many paintings do you have to sell if you're making $250 a painting, which is not really $250 because
No,
PayPal takes a cut,
they
and
take a
then
cut,
and we
shipping.
have to bring the money. Oh yeah, shipping is terrible.
Yeah.
Don't tell us about it. We haven't changed shipping since 2019. We charged the same since 2019. Shipping has become insane, insane. But if we tell people, hey, I'm going to have to charge you twice for shipping, people have a heart attack. So we try to up the price. Hopefully people understand this. We up the price of painting a little bit to subsidize the shipping, but fine. But no, but just to make a long story short, we just couldn't do it. I mean, we make $150 a month from the channel. It's nothing. It's nothing. Nothing. So you can't make a living off the channel. We could make a living by selling a crap ton of paintings, but that means that you have to make a crap ton of paintings and sell a crap ton of paintings, which is very difficult too. But we
I
were
will
hoping,
say
yes.
that there was that experience of watching your videos
Mm-hmm.
and then knowing the next day it was
Yeah.
going to go up on your website,
Yeah.
and sitting there in my car right before the train to go to my job and hitting refresh just to
Oh,
see if I could get it.
that's so nice
And
of you.
I
Thank
can't
you.
tell you how many times I missed it. I
Yeah.
was like, who
Yeah,
got
it
there
was
before
yeah, there
me?
was this weird, because it's never been quite like that, I'll be super honest, but there was this weird myth around it that where people thought these paintings, you post them and they're gone. Because we never
It happened to me a
pre-sold
few times,
anything.
man.
Never pre-sold anything. Like, cross my heart, like, I promise you. My dad's life. We never pre-sold anything. We never like said, "Oh, this is gonna go out and it's sold out already." Oh, because somebody else had paid it before. No, never, never, ever. We were just nope. We're posting it and fine. If you like it, you're gonna have a chance to buy it. If you don't, that's fine. But it was more of a myth than truth. Like sometimes it would literally sell immediately. Other times it was there for like a couple of hours. Other times it would be there for like a day, and so it wasn't that, but people started having this idea of like, oh my God, these paintings are, I have to buy one because they're going to be gone like immediately. So that helped us, that
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
sense of it being like this very ephemeral thing, that comes to market and then it's gone. That helped a ton for sure. Because
Sure.
that sort of myth hovering over whatever you're doing, it's always nice, but it was never quite true. It was never ever quite true. But what I was saying, like, to try to explain why we had to break from it, it's just not sustainable. I mean, it was never sustainable from a working, from just Danny and I working, because literally we were working 7 days a week. Like, Danny is insane for having to, the work that went into editing those videos was insane. She probably worked way more hours than I would. So I
Hmm.
would. The thing is, I was just dumb. I'm still dumb. So it would take me far longer to just come up with like I never scripted anything. So that was also kind of cool. I had an idea of what I want to say, but I was like, let's wing it. But when you wing it, sometimes you have to, for a 20-minute video, 25-minute video, you have to speak for 45 minutes to then just
Totally.
Frankenstein together, the voiceover, which is what I would do. And that was very tough for me. Like, I enjoyed the painting aspect. I love talking about painting, so that's not bad. but making a coherent voiceover, that was always hopefully my aim, that was very difficult. But Danny would be waiting for me. She would be like, when we were working really well, we would have videos in advance, but that was not quite the case all the time. Sometimes we were like, we are just one video in advance. Like we were editing, we were painting and doing voice. I would have to do voiceover, and Danny was like, dude, come on, hurry up, because I'm going to do graphics and I have to have your voiceover to know how to edit, like what I'm going to edit. It was very difficult. So every day, super late nights, weekends also, very, very difficult. So at some point we were like, okay, this is working, but this is insane.
It's not sustainable.
Insane. No,
Yeah.
not at all. Of course
Not at all.
Not at all. So at some point we were like, no, I mean, this has been a great ride. This is awesome. The videos are there for everyone to see if they want to go back to them, and it's totally free. It's open for anyone.
Yeah, I love that they're still there.
Yeah, but it's too much. It was too much. We knew it. We knew it. We saw each other and we were like, okay, we are disgusting. This is way too much work, and not the cool sort of work, because it's not balanced. So
Sure.
we were like, this has been awesome, but we have to stop. And we made like a slow transition towards live videos. And then we were offering some online workshops where it was cool. And I've been doing I did online workshops, but I do in-person workshops all over the world, which I've been trying to cut down also because it's a lot of traveling. Like
The travel's rough.
Yeah, there was a year where it was ridiculous. Danny was like, you're here for 2 weeks and then you're gone. And then here for 2 weeks, then you're gone. And that was the year. And I was like, yeah, it's not feeling right. It's not feeling right. It's feeling like a lot. That's great. And it's good money and it's everything. Well, that's at times it's good money, not all the time.
Not all the time, yeah.
Yeah, I'm if I have to be honest. But it was great. It's expanding your audience, and you're getting to meet people from all over the world that they tell you like, oh, this is awesome. This has been super cool for me also. So it's very beautiful, very, very beautiful. But I think we were working ourselves to the bone, and it's so difficult. And so now we're trying to be a little more intelligent, because it has one thing that has never changed was that we have depended on selling paintings always. So that's the tough part. It's like you always end up with a product, and the product, is what needs to be sold for you to be, keep making a living out of it. So that is hell. That is hell. I mean, we're super proud because we've created a market that has sold hundreds of paintings, but it doesn't mean it's easy. People have to realize it's not easy. It's every time you're in labor. You're like, Jesus Christ, this is ridiculous every single time. And, I always tell this, but my mom, if something doesn't sell, she's like the first one to write to me. It's like, hey, sorry. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Probably maybe not your best, but it's a tough one. Tough one to sell. So yeah. So she,
wow.
Here you are always thinking people notice, my mother's noticing. So great. No, but it's always tough. So what we're hoping with the patron, which is also something that I feel that I need inside, and I think it would make for a really nice transition, and it's actually something that I need as a painter, is to not be so hyper dependent on selling like a painting. It's
totally.
You're so consumed by the final object and it being commercial in a way so that you can live your life, that it's just wears down on you. The weight of the painting, almost never ceases to be there. And we thought with patron, what if the patron's about more of the making of paintings rather than, hey, here's a painting, here's how I make a painting, here's how I make a painting. And it's just hey, this is a painting after a painting after a painting after a painting. I'm going to show you how I make my great paintings and blah, 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 blah. It's no. What if we slow it down and we concentrate on everything that goes around the making of images, which is amazing, which is an incredible world that we don't stop to think about because we're just absolutely obsessed with the final image. So that's what we're betting on, and we're hoping that people see that there's value in that. But I think that that's the right transition also for us, because it makes sense in my life. It makes sense in the life that I shared with Danny that had to do with our painted lives. And and how it's kind of evolved or transformed into this, because we've explored what it means to just try to sell everything you do. Everything, dude. It's like, I did a drawing, sell it. I did Danny does a sculpture, sell it. I did a small painting, sell it. I did a medium-sized painting, sell it. I did a large painting, sell it. I did a indirect painting, sell it. I did a alla prima painting, sell it. Yeah, dude, it's so much that I think I owe it to myself and to the paintings to say, slow down, dude. It doesn't matter if the painting, if like the resulting painting resembles a painting that you did in one sitting when you were trying to sell them. Fine, that's totally fine. Don't worry about what they resemble. But the fact that I can say, hey, today, I did an underpainting. I had an underdrawing, and I did an umber underpainting. I talked about underpaintings, and I gave an example of a little painting that I have of my mother's. I'm trying to. Maybe I didn't even mention that. I had it in my OBS, and I don't even know if I showed that painting. I don't think I did. Anyways, I forgot. Probably. I'll show it. I'll show it in the next video. Whatever. But it's almost like you have time. You have time again to just slow down and paint and talk about the things that you love. I hope for both of us, for Danny and myself, I hope that we can share that with people, and that becomes something that's important. And I do think it's relevant also, because we are heading into a space where access to images is going to be the easiest thing in the world. I really don't think that's going to change. I really don't. I think the game changed. The bottle, the genie is out. You can't put it back in. This is different. The world is going to be different from now on in terms of image making. So if image making is going to be so accessible, because it is going to be every single year, every month, it gets better. Video is getting better in the sense that, again, it becomes accessible. And it becomes like almost like open source, because right now it's Wild West. Like copyright doesn't matter. Nothing matters. It's crazy. Almost like proto internet days where nothing matters. Nothing. Like there's no laws. There's no rules. There's no nothing. Nothing matters. But what's happening, unfortunately, is that because nothing matters, because we don't have laws to govern anything like this, we are pumping images out like nuts. It's crazy how sophisticated the images look. I know they're flawed, but images have always been flawed. So this is ridiculous. So there's so much of it that at some point you go like, what is going to make us human? What's going to make the human experience relevant in the act of picture making? And we've thought about it, and it's like, yeah, maybe it's bringing people close to what makes, why it made sense for me to paint electro. And I devoted like 5 videos, I think, of me from brainstorming to drawing to thinking what the painting was going to look like to making a color study, to starting the painting, to struggling like hell through trying to solve the painting, to then finally understanding the painting and finishing it. But I think that really bumpy road in the end is that's the human experience. And that's what's not going to be there. If you're obsessed with image making, there's going to be so many resources out there that are going to give you a super cool image. Like you're probably going to be able to have an image of electro way better than mine, way cooler than mine, and way more in tune to what you wanted to get out of that character. And you just prompt it and get it, and it's great. And it's a great experience for you. And maybe as we advance, you can get that in high res and pay like a small fee for that. And then you go and print it, and you can print it really nicely. And you have the thing that you wanted, and it looks great. It looks fine. Like I'm thinking that if this just, follows that curve that it's following, and there's no laws, to try to make it go slower. But it seems like it won't slow down. It won't. It just won't. And if it slows down, it really won't, because other countries are doing it, and they're not going to stop. It's not like other countries are going to say, oh, the US has like tough laws on copyright for AI. Oh yeah, let's all stop then. All of us stop. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So, this thing is just there. It's going to be there. and we have to begin to deal with it. And the way in which we thought we could try to begin to deal with it was just saying like, okay, let's bring everyone closer to like the human experience of trying to understand what it means to make images. And I think that that's going to be cool. I really do. I would bet on us to be able to navigate this really tough road that's going to be ahead if we concentrate on those aspects. Because if we don't, then what the hell are we doing? What are human beings? What is humanity without, songs and dance and theater and writing and, plays and painting and sculpture and architecture and drawing? Our Patreon, it's called OPL Together. So OPL is Our Painted Lives. That's been our little branding thing. But and now it's called Together because ideally we go through all this kind of, there's a tone to the videos that we do for our patron where we hope that, what you described, Evan, it's actually super cool. That our hope is that the vibe that you get from these videos is like you're working right next to somebody. Like you're literally, what usually happens is like painters or artists or, draftspeople, sculptors, whatever they're doing, concept artists, they usually work and they listen to what we do and they kind of look at the monitor as they're working. But it feels like company. It feels like art company. That's our aim, just to have like somebody right there next to you talking about dumb things in art. And it's cool. It's what we like. So hopefully that comes through. But yes, it's called OPL Together. So if you search for that in Patreon, or if you go to my Instagram, there's going to be like a little link in the bios.
Yeah, we'll also have links in the show notes. And
Thank you.
Everywhere where this podcast is.
Thank you.
I think what you're saying is super critical. Juliet Aristides, right?
Yeah.
She has a new book coming out, which is focusing on the inner life of the artist. And
nice.
So much of that is getting to that extra something special that makes an artist and reveling in the creative act and sort of not having it only be about the end product, you know. And so yeah, I'm very hopeful for where things are going because there's such great artists like yourself and Juliet who are out there really sharing all these amazing things, making things accessible and being able to be connected through things like Patreon, which is nowhere near cost prohibitive for anyone, so it's really cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. Juliet has done, I think because her first book was probably 20 years ago, maybe? I remember that book coming out.
Yeah, it changed my life.
I know. It became like a really important book for a lot of people. Yeah. And I think books are relevant. For me, for example, I remember I had like a David Leffel book, and I had the Richard Schmidt, Alla Prima book. I had the James Gurney Color and Light book.
That's a beautiful one too.
Yeah. They're great books. And I had some of the, I had the a bunch of anatomy, like the Vanderpoel book, like anatomy book. I absolutely adore that book.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Bridgman, I had all of his books. But there was, in some books in particular, like, for example, I don't quite paint like, not even close to being interested in painting like Richard Schmidt. But there was a tone to his book that was super nice, that I really, really appreciated how down to earth and simple and just, funny at times, but it was just like light, very lighthearted, because I think that was his character also, and he was a hell of a painter. I think
seems so. He's amazing.
I think he was a terrific painter, and I could say the same thing about David Leffel. I was struggling a ton when I was starting out painting, and I think his book was Oil Painting from a Master, Secrets from a Master, or something. It has like whatever
something
name,
like that,
whatever title. Yeah. But I remember, again, simplifying things. And at the time, he was at the league still, I think, or at Greg Kreutz was teaching. Kreutz was teaching also some of his stuff. But it was super cool. And I remember seeing watching him paint once also. And it just became simple. Like it made painting really simple for me. So sometimes books are relevant not because they're like the greatest artist that you've ever seen, because I know a lot of people didn't care for David Leffel or don't care about the way Richard Schmidt paints. That's totally fair. Or don't think like, oh, James Gurney, but he's an illustrator. Like, but I want sophisticated color theory. And it's like, oh, it's all there. It is there.
It is there.
If you allow yourself to see it, it is 100% there. You just have to like, don't get hung up on the fact that this is what the paintings that they do. Like the information that they provide was super, super helpful. And I think Juliet's book was that for a ton of people also, that it was, yes, it's, you know, you don't have to be classically or academically trained to look at what she's doing and to find value in it, because I think she's sort of drifted a little bit, or she was always kind of a little more adjacent to that and not wholly kind of like academic, which made it super cool for me to look at her work and enjoy it and read her stuff and enjoy it. So I'm really happy that she's doing something else. I wasn't aware of that, but I'm really happy because I do think those publications, when they fall into the right hands, which means like younger artists that are, you know, have to weather all this storm and have to make sense of all this like weird moment that they're going to live in. Maybe those books, maybe it's just like a paragraph in a book or like something that clicks and makes sense for you. And that's what drives you. That's what, like, you know, that's going to make you be the person, and you don't know it, but maybe it makes you the person that sort of redefines painting in a way where a lot of people are going to connect. So yeah, those things are super, super important. So yeah, I hope more people devote their energy and time to them, and hopefully they'll find an audience.
Totally. Well, so this brings us to a sort of towards the end of our conversation here, and I want to ask two questions, and the book conversation kind of leads into one of them.
Okay.
What are two wholehearted recommendations that you can share?
Jesus
like
Christ,
what
Evan.
films, what books, what
Jesus
music?
Christ.
I know, it's really hard.
Woof.
What are you into lately?
Well, I'm kind of weird because, I mean, I've been rediscovering my love for comic books lately, which had left because I thought they were, you know, I grew up in the, I'm 77, 1977. So I grew up, I'm an 80s kid, so 80s cartoons, but I'm a 90s, you know, sort of teen. So I grew up with the making of Image, if that means anything to people that know comic books.
Totally.
So I was totally part of that 90s, you know, part of comic books, but I was also into like the Vertigo comic books, the ones that felt like darker and weirder. And, you know, that's where I saw like Kent Williams' work or Phil Hale's work in covers. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is incredible. And, but sadly, I had left a little bit of what I wanted to get from comic books because I thought, well, it's not that I felt that was juvenile, because, I mean, you should see what I'm surrounded with. I'm surrounded by stuff that speaks about my love for comic book stuff. So this doesn't sound like I was really struggling because I had left this behind. You know, there's a big, you know, 1989 Batman statue behind me. So there's So no, so it's not like a struggle, but I had to come back to terms with understanding the place that these books really, really mattered, why they mattered to me, and why they're relevant right now. So if I could recommend, I mean, this is weird because I was thinking like, oh, what am I going to say? A movie or something, or a book or something and which is fine. But I've been rediscovering books through these like Artisan and Artist Edition. Now they sell these Artisan editions or these Artist Edition of comic books where they print them, you know, the Artist Editions, they print them real size. So the actual size, they're the actual scans of the comic books. I have a bunch of them. We have them in
They're
our bedroom.
beautiful.
They're amazing. They're amazing. They're amazing. I even think, which one was the last one, the last big one? I think it was the Mazzucchelli Batman. Dude, that book, everyone should have that book. It's incredible storytelling, like visual storytelling. It's amazing, you know, amazing art, gorgeously printed. I mean, ridiculously printed.
The printing's really beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. So I love those. So yeah, David Mazzucchelli. I have rediscovered my love for Kirby, Jack Kirby. Yes. Which I always thought, okay, this is dated, or this is, you know, this is comic books, but this is like...
That was my issue too.
Dude, this is like, yeah, this is old. It feels old. It's weird. It's funky. It's like no anatomy. It's just like brushwork. You know, it's like like pen and ink. Well, not even pen and ink. It's just brushwork, brush and ink. But and I've been obsessing over Jack Kirby now. I have
They're
a bunch of
amazing.
his like the artist edition books too. And I've been like, Jesus Christ, how is he this good? Like there's something about it that I was blind to when I was younger because I thought they were great. The but that was Bushima. I think it was Sal Buscema, the how to draw comic books like the Marvel way. I think that was Sal Buscema or his brother. But anyways, but those I always felt like yeah, those are great books, but they're just kind of old. But I've been looking at like Fantastic Four stuff, Thor stuff. My God, it's so good. It's so sophisticated. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I've been rediscovering that for myself. So I wouldn't dare tell people like, "Hey, this is objectively what you need to see because it's so relevant, it's so important for everyone." No, of course not. But what I can do is tell you like this is this is great for me. This has been really really great for me. And
I love that.
it's helped a ton. So I'm looking at the books that I decided to keep. What else do I have here? The famous artist courses.
Yeah,
I have all of them. Bought
that's
all of the
amazing.
folders. Yeah. So they have like exercises that
Those are fantastic.
Austin Briggs would do, Al Parker would do, Robert Fawcett would do. Those things
It's a
are
little hard to find
priceless.
too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I found a
Yeah,
dude that had them in good shape. I mean, they smell like a 140-year-old dude. Yeah, they smell like a dude in a rent control apartment in New York that is
perfect.
140 and uses Bengay spray,
Yeah,
for soap. But
totally.
it's amazing. They smell like they should smell. They were in great shape. I got them shipped over here, which cost me whatever because it's a brick. But I love those. I love those books. I look at them and it feels so right. And it's a reminder. I mean, this is, at a time where things were different, of course. But this was at a time where people were still looking for jobs and where illustrators were, hopefully in the with the they all of them shared a desire to understand this as a trade. Art was just something that you would do. Is if you want to be a butcher, be a butcher. If you want to be a mailman, be a mailman. If you want to be an illustrator, be an illustrator. It was very down to earth, very quotidian. It was like, yeah, be an artist. And this was a way in which some of the best illustrators ever, even Rockwell was part of this, at the latter part of his life, but some of the best illustrators ever decided, you know what, let's make teaching accessible to people. And they would send these courses, you would pay and you would get all these folders, and all these folders have like assignments, and you would actually do your assignment, mail it in, and then Robert Fawcett would look at it and he would make notes on it, and then he would ship it back to you, and you would have notes on these like genius illustrators
Yeah.
looking at your work and
How
saying like, hey,
crazy is that?
it's just amazing. I think
Yeah.
we've forgotten about the fact that we can understand ourselves. I'm saying artists means whatever, but we could understand ourselves as a community, and we could just deal with the difficulties surrounding our community as a community. And we've forgotten about that. We have. But that was not the case. I mean, this was how thousands of artists were trained back in the 60s. And it's incredible. It's incredible. So when I look at those things, yeah, when I look at those big ass folders, I smile. So I don't know. Maybe I'm nostalgic because I'm saying Jack Kirby and the
I
famous
know.
artist
It's so
courses.
good. Yeah, that's
So
so
nothing
good.
new. Nothing new. I'm sounding like I'm freaking 120. But I don't know. There's value in those things. I think maybe the moral behind all of that is that rediscover the value behind things that already exist. You don't have to be searching for something that's new and has a fresh scent
Yeah.
and that is thinking where you think that's where art is headed, that you just have to anticipate where art is headed, and it's you just have to look through the people that are amazing, that are doing amazing things. And that's certainly true. So if you like that, you could just look at Alberto Mielgo's like animation, and that's great. That dude single-handedly is changing traditional animation. So sure, you could look at stuff where there's people pushing forward, But it doesn't mean that the stuff that is back, that all the efforts that were done, behind us are over, like they're dead, like that those belong to a time and there's nothing in there. No, there's always something to uncover, unearth, and maybe I'm the sort of person that finds a lot of courage in the past,
Yeah.
and stuff, and all those efforts that other people did, and I just want to see them with new eyes, with the eyes of somebody who's working today, and I think there's gold everywhere. So maybe it's that, maybe it's don't kill yourself trying to look forward so much. Sure, like the world is always going to make something new and something amazing. There's always going to be that person that pushes something and makes a breakthrough. It doesn't mean that all of us have to be that person. We don't, or that if we're not that person, then our life was pointless because we didn't do, our job in pushing something forward. Sometimes it's about like weathering a storm and understanding how to deal with things. And understanding what our position should be or what we could do in order to highlight things that maybe are forgotten. So maybe that's it. So yeah,
That's fantastic. Also, like, totally, I can tell that you're a student of art history. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, it's so
You
good.
love this. That's the thing. I think that I always when I used to teach, I would always tell people, because I had like a bunch of, I taught at an art faculty, but I taught life drawing, life painting at times, and painting, like foundation painting. And people that were doing I wouldn't know how to translate that, but fine arts, it's the closest, let's say. But people that were doing like a fine arts major, or they would have to see painting. They would have to. It was obligatory. So everyone would have to go through painting if they were doing fine arts. And some people were like, the first day, they were like, I don't like to paint. I don't care about painting. I don't, I could care less about this. I just need to see it because I have to, they're making me fill up these credits. So I have to see it. And I was like, okay, I get it. And with drawing, it was the same thing. They would have to go, it was drawing 3, and they would have to see life drawing. And some people were like, I don't care about this. I'm going to do, short films or whatever. And I was like, okay, I get it. But I always told them, but I'm going to show you, hopefully, why this means the world to me, why this is the most important thing in my life. And hopefully, if I'm passionate enough and if I can give you an idea of why this made me change everything in my life, so I can devote my life to this and I'm excited about this every day, maybe that's infectious. Maybe you'll see that, hey, I don't like to paint. I'm not going to be a painter, but I love that you showed me what somebody that's excited about painting looks like and feels like, and the things that they think about. Because I've always thought that even if you don't intersect with somebody's, likes, whenever you see somebody who's passionate about anything, you're like, you go. You're like, yes, I feel happy for you. I don't know. That's like an instinctual feeling that we get when we see somebody enjoy what they do. And I think that's our job. That our job is just to solely say, like, look, this is a life of somebody who loves to do this, who loves to talk about this. I still remember going to bars and discussing what we would mix for grays. If we had like a palette, it's like, how did you get that gray? And it's like, oh my God, yeah, but I'm using this and I think it's a little bit better. It's like, oh, F you, dude. And we were like pounding beers, just talking about cobalt blue like idiots. And it's stupid, but it's great. It was great. I loved every second of it. And it's still that. I've done workshops in Liverpool where it's almost like a sin not to get a pint after every day of the workshop.
Sure.
And then we go there and we keep talking about art.
Yeah.
You would think people are like,
it's the second part of the workshop.
Yeah. People are like, let's not, dude. It's like, come on, let's just have a beer. And no, and everyone just kind of organically starts talking about art and we all enjoy it. And, if you're having a beer, it's like you enjoy it even more. And it's like, this is amazing. This is like the coolest like part where, once again, like the world sort of meets with that, or the idea that you have of an outer world, like sitting at a bar, meets with this idea of speaking about what you thought was incredibly private about your life, which was sitting down and working and painting and drawing. And you realize, no, this is bigger and this is like nicer and it's broader than what you feel. And when you get a lot of people together that feel super cool about sharing that love for what they do, it feels right. I don't know. I think it's about sharing that vibes of things feeling right. Anyways.
I really dig it, man.
Dude, awesome.
I think the last thing I would love to ask you for this conversation is something that I always recommend people ask artists, which is
Jesus Christ.
It's honestly it's a hard question.
I was so happy. I was like, and that's it. We're out.
And we're done.
Yeah. My last phrase was like, you could just end it there. We're fine. We're totally fine. Now I'm crapping my pants. I have no idea what you're going to ask. Okay,
I love it. What was the hardest thing for you to unlearn?
Christ, that's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
That's a tough one. I think it had to do with both Max and Steve. Yeah. Because I adored them. You know, I once again, looking back, you know, if I hope life gives me a chance to keep doing this thing that I love for many, many years. And there's going to be a time that I look back and, you know, introspectively try to understand the people that were really important in my life. And Max and Steve are going to be there because I just simply wouldn't paint if it wasn't for them. I mean, in Steve's case, he was my first painting teacher. So I remember just going to class and first class watching him paint, and I had no clue how to approach or what life painting meant. I had never really understood painting. And then I suddenly see this dude just doing I don't know. It's just, people will never understand that. But watching Steve paint for the first time, and for me, watching him in like 96, not knowing anything about painting, and just him looking at the model and the way he just approaches painting, which is the weirdest thing ever. Nobody should ever paint that way. But that's how he paints. That's how he makes it work. Mm-hmm. It was so magical. It was so freaking magical.
It really is.
Yeah. So I believe they are some of the most important people in my life, for sure. For sure. There's no doubt about it. Like Max, Steve, my drawing teacher, Sam Martin, he was the kindest, gentlest, you know, teacher ever. Spoke to me, you know, he taught me the relevance of a teacher not addressing you as in like part of a herd and just spewing the same thing he's probably said for years, you know, to his classes. But when he would talk to me, he would talk to me. It felt like he was talking to me. I love that. I don't have the words to express how relevant and important that was for me. To feel like in a class of 30 people, when he would come by, he would be the sort of person that, he's an older dude, he would gently put his arm on your shoulder and he would start talking to you. You know, it felt like he was talking to me. And I loved that. And I realized, wow, this is why it's important to always address people that put their trust in your hands and pay attention to them and listen to them and really observe what they're doing. And when you're giving them suggestions, make them understand that they're for them, that you were there listening. I love those people, but I had to forget what they taught me. I had to. So it's the most painful thing in the world was saying, you know, Steve taught me how to paint. Well, Steve and Max, which is diametrically opposed, which is very poetic also because Max was Steve's teacher. So it's kind of insane, but they both paint in ridiculously different ways. Max paints in like American Impressionist, Post-Impressionist, like figurative tradition. Steve paints in whatever the hell he does. So
and Steven, yeah.
So, but there were things that they would speak about and that they would materialize through paint, even though it's vastly different. But there was like an underlying philosophy to a lot of what they did. And at some point, I realized, for example, for me, it was super important to realize that I knew nothing about color theory. Nothing. Because God bless them, but they don't teach color theory. None of the two of them. They don't. They just teach you how to make, like sometimes Max would be, now you take green and red and paint it, and this is amazing.
Yeah.
But it was never like Steve teaches in like Egyptian riddles because he can be, you know, he can be. But you learn so much from just looking at him. But totally. Color theory, like very fundamental color theory, I never got from them. All I got was like practical color theory, like saying if I mix this and this, it works under these conditions. If I mix this and this. So I was just replicating a lot of the things that they would do. But to realize that I had to move forward in my own path meant that I had to take the teachings of two people that I adored and two people that were incredibly important in my life and say goodbye and say, I don't care to paint like you anymore. I don't care to understand color like you anymore. I don't care to put brushstrokes down like you anymore, because that's not my life. That's your life. And I'm very grateful that you dedicate your life to teaching tons of people. I mean, Max and Steve have probably taught thousands of people.
Easily.
And so I'm incredibly grateful that they made the choice to teach people. But at some point, I think that if you would ask them, their expectation would be like, I don't want you to paint like me. I don't care for you. I never even got a sense of Steve saying, you don't have to draw like he could care less about you drawing like him. Like he could care less about you applying paint like he would. It didn't. And the same thing with Max. They never did. Of course, they're both very, well, one is a sculptural painter, Steve, and one is a very brushy painter, Max. But they didn't, I mean, they weren't adamant about you being like a little carbon copy of what they taught. People just naturally gravitated to trying to solve ways in which they did, just because they were so powerful. But I think that it is important, and I think every single person that will ever teach you anything or pass information along to you, they never expect you to lose your ability to be critical. They never. And they're always hoping, in the same way that I'm hoping, that people listen to this and they take the good and then forget about everything else and say, well, that sounded like crap, but I like this that they said, and I'm holding on to this a little bit.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we all do with every single painter and teacher we have encountered, as wonderful as they are. We have had to pick and choose and to edit things out and to have certain parts, certain aspects become part of our lives. And yeah, so doing that feels really weird because you feel like you're betraying them and betraying all the work that they did for you. But it's necessary. And I think that, again, they both would be the first ones to say, like, we expected that of you. Like, we wanted that for you. We never wanted like a little bastard version of Steve Assel just painting 80% like him.
Right.
It's like, no, nobody cares for that. No. So I think that is very difficult, but you have to listen to those people that are your heroes and then make up your own mind. Then gather courage, because I've always felt that their stories are just incredible stories where we gain courage from. Mm-hmm. But it's the courage that's necessary for you to then leave and go and do your own thing. And it doesn't matter. Like, I don't think I'll be half the painter that they are. I don't think so. I think they paint circles around me, and they have understood painting in ways that I'll never be able to understand it. But that doesn't mean that my life is not worth living through paint. Like, that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy every bit of my life in painting. The fact that I'm never going to sell paintings at the prices that I saw Steve sold at Forum, or do as complex a painting, or understand light and form as much as he did, or draw with such, care and beauty, it doesn't matter. Like, none of that mattered. So I still think that what's worth it is when you realize that you have to leave and you have to be your own artist, whatever that means. There's going to be such an enormous satisfaction in becoming that person that you'll forget about if you're good or not. It doesn't matter, in the end. So anyways, is that good? Can we end on that? Do you have something else like up your sleeve? Like, and for the last question,
I always do, but no, yeah, that was fantastic. You're killing me. That was fantastic, man.
Killing me, dude.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
You're super nice, and you're a hell of a draftsman, dude. So cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hell yeah. I was trying to make sense, like what you, like. I mean, we all do this. But I was like, what is this? What is this drawing? Like Paul Cadmus or Horst Jansen? Do you like Horst Jansen?
I love both those guys.
Freaking
phenomenal draftsmen.
Yeah, I love that. It's just that I think, I mean, you do a lot of stuff. And I don't want to pigeonhole you into drawing, but you have this particular kind of love for drawing.
I love it, yeah. It's my whole world. The way you talk about painting is how I feel about drawing.
Yeah, dude, it's gorgeous drawings. I've always
Thank you.
Really, really appreciated when an artist says it's drawing for me. It's drawing. It's like when they pick the world of drawing with all the difficulties that entails, but it is fascinating to me. I've always had like an enormous admiration for people that say I'm a draftsperson. Like that is my life. I freaking love that for you, and I think that people that understand drawing, as the powerful. I think it's the most powerful tool. I think it's the most like primitive, instinctual. Like that is us. I think that's closer to what we are as a species as anything gets. Like the purity of drawing is just insane. So I love that people say, hey, this is it for me. I'm going to devote my life to just kind of understanding and unraveling this thing that is drawings. But it's super cool, dude. I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you so much. Well, this has been really wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful for me too. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. That was awesome, right? Nicolas, again, always thank you so much. You're so generous. I want to do one more plug for the OPL Patreon page. Nicolas and Danny post multiple times a week. It's easily one of the best returns of investment that I've ever made. I'm happy to be a part of their Patreon. And one of the things I just want to highlight, he has a video that he put out semi-recently about overdrawing. And that's one of the first things that I think I kind of returned to with his work. He will work in multiple different styles, multiple modalities, subjects, right? But there's a consistency in his procedure where he runs into a problem and decides the way to tackle it is to draw on top of the painting and then work back into that drawing. It's such a good and freeing way of working, and to hear him break down his thoughts on that is really insightful. He shows a lot of great examples of paintings through time, and of course his own work, and I found it really, really wonderful. It was a great listen, really educational, and I can't underscore enough how frequent they're posting and also how in-depth and generous the information is. So if you have an extra couple of bucks each month in your wallet, definitely check out the OPL Patreon page. Nicolas, thank you so much for being here. Everyone can find links to everything, including his awesome recommendations, in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to us on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, but maybe you kind of prefer audio-only versions, the video's not doing it for you, you can find our audio versions anywhere you can get your podcasts. So like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all that stuff. If you feel compelled to give us a review, please do. That actually really help us out. If you're on YouTube and you're watching the video and you made it this far, please, if you could like and subscribe, it actually really does help. Like more than I would like to admit that it does. So you would be doing me a really big favor. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, and be on the lookout for an episode next week. Take care.